Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The debt was demanded, the price it was paid.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets break clear, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Welcome to the Medlock Post radio show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. And here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medlock Post radio show, where we stand for the red, white, and blue. Yes, we do. We stand, we support, we fight for the red, white, and blue. I'm your host, Richard G. Medlock. This is March 1st, 2023. March 1st, 20 days until springtime. Now, in the South, where I am, we have blossoms all over the place. Trees have blossomed out. Flowers are blossoming. We're actually, yesterday and today, we're running our air conditioner. It's that warm here. Yeah, and we're not breaking any temperature records. This is typical. We've had a warm winter in the South, and that's fine and great. But today's episode is 116, and I know you're saying, wait a minute, the last one was 117. Well, I had this one partially set up, and then something else came up, and I didn't want to change all the numbers, and that's fine. Then anyway, it doesn't matter. Today is Rules for American Patriots. On episode 113, we did a solemn patriotism and went through patriotism, quoting the founders and modern day people about patriotism. And I'm going to quote one today before we get into the rules. So, rules for American patriots. There's rules for radicals, there's rules for communists, and all. So we need rules. They're not complicated. They've been there from the beginning of this country. We just need to remind ourselves of the things that we need to be doing to maintain America and its beautiful and powerful strength. Now, before I get to that, program note. Tomorrow, March 2nd, Joni Bryan of the 917 Society will be our guest. And she's been real busy the last 3-4 months. And we're going to talk about that and a few other things. And the title of that is going to be Constitution 101 with Joni Bryan. Now, those that are not familiar with her, she's been on the program before. We mention it a lot. The 917 Society is placing pocket constitutions in the hands of 8th graders and 11th graders in all 50 states in the schools. They're working with the school systems, with the states, and so forth. And it's a phenomenal thing. There's a lot of great things coming out of this work. And we're going to get updated on that tomorrow and a few other good things from Joni, our good friend. All righty. I'd like to start out by reading from an article I saw a couple of weeks ago. And it really struck me about what is going on in America and how we arrived here today. So I'm going to read part of this article. It's titled, "Are We Becoming Too Comfortable with Lesser Light?" And this was penned by Kathy Clayton. And Kathy with a K and Clayton with a C. And I don't know her, but it is in Meridian Magazine. And the whole article is beautiful. Go to Meridian Magazine and look up Kathy Clayton. But this is part of it. And I think it fits right into what we're talking about today. So let me read from her article. Some years ago, I attended a concert in a small performance hall on a college campus. On her violin, our daughter-in-law was accompanying a pianist as he delighted a full house of music lovers for an hour concert. On the edges of our seats, we paid careful attention while he entertained us with complicated piano pieces from his broadly assorted repertoire. Near the end of the concert, I noticed the pianist gesturing discreetly to the fellow in the sound booth. Immediately after that nod, the lights in the room burst instantly into such brightness that we all squinted and even covered our eyes to defend against the shock of the wattage. Responsive to our surprise, the pianist offered an explanation for the offense. He proceeded to share a productive metaphor that I continue to reflect upon and learn from. The pianist confessed that prior to the concert, he had instructed the sound engineer to gradually dim the lights in the house. Over the course of the hour concert, that sound technician had very slightly lessened the light in the room. Near the end of the concert, responsive to a cue from the pianist, he abruptly returned the lights to the original full position. The audience had been so intent on the music that we had not noticed the slowly dimming light. When the light was restored to its original full position, our eyes had become accustomed to lesser light and had spontaneously adjusted to the dimness. We had, in fact, become so comfortable with the lesser light that we squinted and squirmed and felt discomfort in the level of light that had welcomed us when the concert began. We not only didn't miss or desire full light, we actually resisted and were initially offended by it. Do you see where this story is going, folks? Yeah, and I think, I'm not through with it yet, but I'm sure your minds are going over some thoughts here. Continuing, without realizing it, we had accepted the lesser light without seeking and craving the bright light that is always and forever a glorious heavenly endowment available to us to lighten our hearts and brighten our way. As we readjusted to the full light and reclaimed complete access to a clear and detailed view of our surroundings, we were grateful for the return. The metaphor of dimming light is clearly relevant in a figurative sense as a caution for us all. Those house lights grew dimmer as a result of instruction from the people in charge of the ambiance in the room. Certainly, the figurative light in the spaces we inhabit is also profoundly affected by the people we choose to invite or allow to manage important life light switches. Types of activities and quality of conversation and music all affect the quantity and quality of light in the rooms of our lives and hearts. Both choosing wisely and admitting influences carefully inevitably illuminate or dim our brightness of vision and lightness of heart. Ladies and gentlemen, for too many years, America has accepted the lesser light of ideology. That lesser light of ideology has brought America and the Constitution to a critical point in time. Americans need to increase our expectations of the level of light and fight to return to the brighter light of American ideology, of constitutional ideology, and the ideology of a constitutional republic.
Let's clear it, brain guy.
Can't see nothing in front of me. Can't see nothing coming.
There once was a place where our differences did not matter. Where strangers stood shoulder to shoulder with outstretched arms and an urge to help.
Where neighbors showed up for neighbors and everyone was our brother or sister.
Connected by nothing more than wanting to do good.
Where everyday people dropped everything to pitch in.
To be a frontliner, a rescuer, a hero when it mattered most, no questions asked.
To get back to that place, all we need to do is remember the 11th of September.
9/11 was a tragedy of unspeakable pain.
But it was also a moment of togetherness.
And a reminder of what we have in common.
A time when people were willing to give whatever they could.
Even at the risk of their own well-being.
A moment of compassion when we all felt more alike than different.
Because in that moment, we were in a state of unitedness.
9/11 proved we're not really divided.
Not when it truly matters.
Let's once again take a moment.
A moment to do a good deed this September 11th.
Done by me, you, us, and millions more.
Dona tu tiempo. Dona un abrigo de invierno.
Or just hold open a door. That kind of thing.
Deeds big and small. That would be a start.
Let's get back to that state of unitedness.
And let's never forget what we're capable of doing together.
all right, I was talking about 9/11, and every year there's a service project, but it's a beautiful message there about let's get reunited. Let's get reunited in American principles and values that founded this country. We're at a time forces within our own country are tearing America apart. And it's more important today than ever for us to come together as true patriotic Americans to pull this country together and to save it. And I want to read this quote. It's by Joseph F. Smith. He wrote this in July 1912. Now, what was going on in 1912? Well, the world was in chaos and tumult. It was leading up to World War I, the war that was going to end all world wars, right? And a lot of things were going economically, ideology, communism, Marxism was creeping into the United States, and it was being endorsed and embraced by some people within America. It was starting to creep into the universities by teaching Karl Marx. So he wrote this. He says, quote, "Patriotism should be sought for, and we will be found in right living, not in high-sounding praises or words. True patriotism is part of the solemn obligation that belongs to the nation and to the individual and to the home. Our nation's reputation should be guarded as sacredly as our family's good name. That reputation should be defended by every citizen, and our children should be taught to defend their country's honor under all circumstances. A truly patriotic spirit in the individual begets a public interest and a sympathy which should be commensurate with our nation's greatness." Let me read that again. A truly patriotic spirit in the individual begets a public interest and sympathy which should be commensurate with our nation's greatness. To be a true citizen of a great country takes nothing from, but adds to, individual greatness. While a great and good people necessarily adds greatness and goodness to national life, the nation's greatness reacts upon its citizens and adds honor to them and ensures their welfare and happiness. Our national welfare should always be a theme deeply rooted in our minds and exemplified in our individual lives. And the desire for our nation's good should be stronger than political party adherence. The nation's welfare means the welfare of every one of its citizens. To be a worthy and a prosperous nation, it must possess those qualities which belong to individual virtues. The attitude of our country toward our nations should always be honest and above suspicion. And every good citizen should be jealous of our nation's reputation both at home and abroad. National patriotism is, therefore, something more than mere expression of willingness to fight if need be. Unquote. July 1912. And then the next year, 1913, we ended up with the two amendments to the Constitution, which created the IRS, income tax, and it also allowed senators to be elected by public vote, not appointed by state legislators. And then we also had the Federal Reserve put in place. And all three of those have been disastrous for this country. So when I said the country was in chaos and tumult, well, the whole world was. But he wrote this. We go back and look at, he says, those qualities which belong to individual virtues. This is what the Founding Fathers knew before they could even write the Declaration of Independence. They knew the country had to become a virtuous country. had to have individual and public virtue, so that when they became independent, when they broke away from Great Britain, they would be virtuous enough to be a self-governing people. And so when we look at individual virtues, it's the individual virtues that qualify us to be self-governing. And these are some things we need to get back to. Put that in as a rule. We can. Individual and public virtue. So let's add that back in. As the great American experiment was being developed and the Constitution was being finalized, Benjamin Franklin observed that it will be a rising sun, a success. From the records of the Federal Convention of 1787, page 339, this is what's written. The Constitution which Franklin and his friends gave to us resulted in the greatest nation in history. With the adoption of our Constitution, our nation became a nation based on law, the Constitution being the supreme law of the land. This rising sun became a beacon of freedom and liberty to the rest of the world. And it still is. And they're trying to destroy it. They're trying to do a different beacon now, folks. I've talked about this. What Biden is trying to do is to take us down the road to globalism. So, rules for American patriots. Well, let's start with this one. We have an obligation and should commit to following the admonitions of our founding fathers. Yes. They were inspired by our Creator, and they had developed wisdom through the years by self-study and other education means to understand not only history, good history and bad history, but to also understand human nature. The Constitution was written to address human nature, and to understand that some humans go off the beaten path of virtue. And the Constitution was written to prevent them from controlling or becoming tyrants over a constitutional republic. They studied the philosophers. They studied the Bible. They supported the Bible and wanted it in the schools. Thomas Jefferson set it up in the schools later on to study from the Bible, to convert anybody to any one of the religions, but to understand principles and values important to an individual to live a virtuous life. They knew these things, and then they had the inspiration of the Creator to help put this together. An old adage tells us, a people must from time to time refresh themselves at the wellspring of their origin, lest they perish. Well, have we not been taking that wellspring away from our younger generations the last few years? They don't teach about America. They teach to hate America, not love it, not appreciate its great history. They're doing it to help destroy a constitutional republic. Ayn Rand told us, I want you to look at the birth of a miracle, the United States of America. If it is ever proper for men to kneel, we should kneel when we read the Declaration of Independence. And I agree. I just talked about them on the episode 115 on George Washington's birthday. I talked about the Declaration and parts of the Constitution. the preamble, and a couple of other things from the Constitution. So, number one, the founders' wisdom and vision should be something that we learn from and follow. Number two, if we want to put number, I don't have numbers on them. The next one is freedom. Have we assigned the maintaining of our freedoms as a high priority in our life? Have we assigned the maintaining of our freedoms as a high priority in our life? Yeah, I ask you that. That's an interesting question. Freedom is given to us by our Creator, by God. All men have the agency and the freedom to exercise that agency, whether good or bad. From the Massachusetts Bill of Rights in 1780, quote, a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and a constant adherence to those of piety, justice, moderation, temperance, industry, and frugality are absolutely necessary to preserve the advantage of liberty and maintain a free government, unquote. God created man to be free, to have the ability to make decisions free without force from others or a government. Man's agency and freedom is the leading unalienable rights that the Constitution is designed to protect, not hinder. Patriotic Americans need to be the freedom's voice for freedom in our country and around the world. Patriotic Americans need to stand for free markets or capitalism at home and throughout the world. When America leads in freedom and good, the world benefits. The spirit of freedom, which moved out across the world in the 1800s, was primarily inspired by the fruits of freedom in the United States. The climate of free market economics led to the explosion of inventions and discoveries the world had never seen for the next 200 years, and they still continue. Adam Smith, the Scotsman who turned economics into a modern science, observed 200 years ago, and right now we're celebrating his 300th birthday. We're going to get into that in a couple of more episodes. He said, in every country it is always and must be in the interest of the great body of people to buy whatever they want of those who sell it cheapest. The proposition is so very manifest that it seems ridiculous to take any pains to prove it, nor could it ever have been called in question had not the interested sophistry of merchants and manufacturers confounded the common sense of mankind. Their interest is in this respect directly opposite of that of the great body of the people. Unquote. Adam Smith's flash of genius was to see how prices that emerge in the marketplace, the prices of goods, the wages of labor, the cost of transport, could coordinate the activities of millions of independent people, strangers to one another, without anybody telling them what to do. Freedom. Is protecting freedom one of your highest priorities? This next section, this is interesting. Saturday morning, I was working on the script for this program. And I went outside, went out on my deck, and my neighbor came out on his deck and, hey, good morning, how you doing, Paul? Paul is a graduate of one of the military academies, worked in a government service. I can't tell you what it was. Worked in the White House for many, many years under that agency. And he's retired now. He's teaching in a private high school here. And I told him he says, well, what's your theme? And I said, Rules for American Patriots. He says, oh, Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. That needs to be one of them. It's being forgotten. It's being overlooked. We should be doing it every day in the schools, in our homes. Bingo. So our next one is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. The Pledge of Allegiance is the official oath of loyalty to the flag of the United States of America. The Pledge of Allegiance to the United States is an oath of loyalty to the nation represented by the federal flag. Although it was written as early as 1892, the pledge was officially recognized by the United States Congress in 1942. And it went through some changes. You can look up the history of the Pledge of Allegiance. Since then, the Pledge of Allegiance has gone on to become an important, albeit controversial at times, oath signifying one's loyalty to the American flag, which represents the United States of America. All local government meetings, levels, and sporting events start with the Pledge of Allegiance being recited, or they should be. And congressional sessions are also opened with the pledge along with a prayer. Now, how do we address this to kids? Well, a sacred promise. How many times in our lives have we stood facing a flag in the corner of a classroom and dutifully recited the Pledge of Allegiance? After a while, the words come automatically, but their meaning, especially to younger kids, can become lost in sheer, mindless repetition. I saw this in scouting. They wanted to go through the Scout Oath and Scout Law and the Pledge of Allegiance as fast as they could. And once they started that, in my troop, I stopped them. And I says, you will repeat after me. And I slowed it way down. I said, if you just race through it, it doesn't sink into your head and it doesn't sink into your heart. There are few things as important as teaching children to love and respect their country and their heritage as Americans. Let me read that again. There are few things as important as teaching children to love and respect their country and their heritage as Americans. Right up there with teaching them values and integrity and religion. To love God, to love country, to love family. This is right there, folks. Now, here are some suggestions when explaining the Pledge of Allegiance to children. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. This is a promise that we will always be true to our country, and our special red, white, and blue flag represents us and all 50 states in our country. We are all on a team together, and the flag is our symbol, our nation's family crest. I bet you never thought of it like that. Our flag is our nation's family crest. Stick that in your head. Boom. Think of it as that. And to the republic for which it stands. In our country, we get to vote for people to stand up for us and make laws. This is called a republic. The leaders we vote for should always listen to us and be responsible. One nation under God. No matter who we are, what we believe, or where we may originally be from, we all are part of the same team, and we believe there is a higher power greater than ourselves looking out for us. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We, the people, are stronger together, and no one can ever break us up. We, the people, believe everyone should be treated fairly and equally. We, the people, are one country forever.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
What do those words mean to you? To me, they say, thank you, America, for your strength, your courage, and for our freedom, which has been a beacon to the world for 200 years.
Of the United States of America,
whose bright stars are 50 states, each bearing its own stamp of individuality. People, 200 million strong. People who have come to her from all corners of the earth.
And to the republic for which it stands.
A land of laws, an ingenious system of checks and balances that allows no man to become a tyrant and lets no group prevail if their power is not tempered with a real concern for the governed. A land where the right of dissent and free speech is jealously guarded, where the ballot box is the sword and the people its wielder.
One nation under God.
A land where freedom of worship is a cornerstone of her being. A land graced with temples and churches, synagogues and altars that rise in profusion to embrace all the religions of the world.
Indivisible.
A land forged by the hot steel of raw courage and formed forever by the awful crucible of civil war.
With liberty.
Where man, in pursuit of an honest life, will not be denied his chance. Where her citizens move freely within her vast borders without hindrance or fear. A land brimming with opportunity, where freedom of choice is the guideline for all.
And justice.
The courts of our land are open to all. Its wheels of justice grind for all causes, all people. They look to every avenue for justice, every concern of the law, and they temper their reasoning with mercy for all.
John Wayne, Pledge of Allegiance. Can never go wrong with John Wayne. You want to know patriotism? Study John Wayne. Our next subject of a rule for American patriots is faith. America's faith in the Almighty has sustained and supported this country through many hardships and challenges. It was by faith the founding fathers placed their trust in our Creator to see them through the creation of this great land. George Washington expressed it this way, quote, "The success which has hitherto attended our united efforts we owe to the gracious interposition of heaven, and to that interposition let us gracefully ascribe the praise of victory and to the blessings of peace," unquote. But there have been those that have evicted providence from our councils, schools, courts, and assemblies. We can't Let this continue, folks. John Quincy Adams, Secretary of State, and this is from Oration celebrating July 4th, 1821, quote, "From the day of the Declaration, the American people were bound by the laws of God, which they all, and by the laws of the gospel, which they nearly all acknowledged as the rules of their conduct," unquote. Sir William Blackstone, an eminent English jurist, which the Founding Fathers studied him, and he was also believed in the freedom of men and that the government should be taken a step back. But he said this, quote, "Man must necessarily be subject to the laws of his creator. This will of his maker is called the law of nature. This law of nature is, of course, superior to any other. No human laws are of any validity if contrary to this, the laws of nature, and such of them as are valid derive all their force from this original," unquote. Sir William Blackstone. So he's saying our laws that we create as children of the Creator should be in line with the laws of God. And if they're not in line, then they should be invalid. That's a pretty simple rule, isn't it? That's really been violated tremendously on the face of the earth. We can add to this a faith in God and in the universal brotherhood of all mankind. An American patriot, Patrick Henry, said, quote, "There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us," unquote. It is perfectly clear that if we lose our faith in God as a whole nation, we will lose freedom. Next, ladies and gentlemen, as a rule for American patriots, family. Yes, family. The core unit which determines the strength of any society is the family. Therefore, the government should foster and protect the family's integrity. Equality of men and women under God's law. Oops, okay, hang on. Equality, I got to make a note here. Alrighty. Kind of type that a little different. Equality of men and women under God's law. This is something we have to look at. The American founders felt the legal, moral, and social relationships between husband and wife were clearly established by Bible law under what Dr. H. Carlton Marlowe has described as differential equality. It's interesting. Differential equality. The husband and wife each have their specific rights appropriate to their role in life and otherwise share all rights in common. The role of the man is to protect and provide. The woman's role is to strengthen the family solidarity in the home and provide a wholesome environment for her husband and children. Now, some of you out there are probably cringing right now, and you shouldn't. This is going back to what made America great. For the purpose of order, the man was given the decision-making responsibilities for the family, and therefore, when he voted for elections, he not only cast a ballot for himself, but also for his wife and children. In theory, God's law made man first in governing his family, but as between himself and his wife, he was merely first among equals. That's right. Husband and wife walk side by side. One is not greater than the other. They just have different roles. As Apostle Paul pointed out in his epistle to the Corinthians, neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man in the Lord. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 11. Father and mother treated equally in Scripture. John Locke wrote in his second essay concerning civil government, just as the colonies were becoming established and his thinking was reflected in the family lifestyle of the American colonies more than in England itself. He stressed the equal responsibility of mother and father in rearing the children. He stated that the term paternal authority seemed so to place the power of parents over their children wholly in the father, and as the mother had no share in it. Whereas if we consult reason or revelation, we shall find she has an equal title, which may give one reason to ask whether this might not be more properly called paternal power. For whatever obligation nature and the right of generation lays on children, it must certainly bind them equally to both the concurrent causes of it. And accordingly, we see the positive law of God everywhere joins them together without distinction. When it condemns the obedience of children, honor thy father and thy mother. Benjamin Franklin's comment on marriage from his own pen, and we have Franklin at the age of 46 emphasizing the importance of marriage as he attempted to dissuade a young friend from taking a mistress. He wrote, quote, "Marriage is the proper remedy. It is the most natural state of man, and therefore the state in which you are most likely to find solid happiness. Your reasons against entering into it at present appear to me not well founded. The circumstantial advantages you have in view by postponing it are not only uncertain, but they are small in comparison with what of the thing itself, the being married and settled. It is the man and woman united that make the complete human being. Separate, she wants his force of body and strength of reason, he, her softness, sensibility, and acute discernment. Together, they are more likely to succeed in the world. A single man has not nearly the value he would have in that state of union. He is an incomplete animal. He resembles the odd half of a pair of scissors. If you get a prudent, healthy wife, your industry and your profession, with her good economy, will be a fortune sufficient." Unquote. Wow. Powerful words about family, about husband and wife, and children, our responsibility. That has been attacked for thousands of years from the beginning. Satan wants to destroy the family because that is what makes a strong society. And that's where husband and wife and children find strength and safety and solitude within the family. Moving on with rules for American patriots. Sanctity and dignity of human life. The sanctity and dignity of human life. At the heart of the relationship between family and faith and freedom is the human person or the human individual, the sovereignty of the human. A human person has God and has freedom, and by definition exists. The person comes into existence through the union of a woman and a man, preferably a mother and a father. A person cannot become a person, of course, if life is denied. Moreover, without a right to life, there can be no individual freedoms or other rights. The right to life is the first and most fundamental of all human freedoms, without which other human freedoms literally cannot exist. President Reagan said this: "My administration is dedicated to the preservation of America as a free land." And he goes on, "And there is no cause more important for preserving that freedom than affirming the transcendent right to life of all human beings, the right without which no other rights have any meaning." For Reagan, that right to life began in the womb. It began at conception. As President Reagan supported a human life amendment to the United States Constitution, which would have inserted into the Constitution these words, quote, "The paramount right to life is vested in each human being from the moment of fertilization without regard to race, health, or condition of dependency," unquote. He favored providing for every human being at all stages of development protection as persons with the right to life under the 14th Amendment. He further states, "This nation fought a terrible war so that black Americans would be guaranteed their God-given rights. Abraham Lincoln recognized that we could not survive as a free land when some could decide whether others could be free or slaves. Well, today another question begs to be asked. How can we survive as a free nation when some decide that others are not fit to live and should be done away with?" I believe no challenge is more important to the character of America than restoring the right to life to all human beings. Without that right, no other rights have meaning. "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God," unquote. The right to life, dignity of life, security and dignity of human life. Sadly, in some circles and in some people, that has left their thinking and their heart and their souls. And they have no regard to human life. Another rule of American patriots: American exceptionalism. How would you describe America? Well, Reagan glowingly described America as a beacon to all of humanity, as the last best hope, a shining city upon a hill. That nation, and go back to what I started with, we have become comfortable with the lesser light. Well, a shining light upon a hill, a beacon. Are we getting comfortable with that shining light, that beacon getting lesser? We should not be comfortable there. That nation would shine its light upon men, perched atop a mountain for the world to admire, a model for other nations to emulate. It signaled hope to those captive peoples behind the Iron Curtain, in communism, in cruel countries, and even in areas of America. Reagan further went on to say, "The ideal of America is nothing but the inherent love of freedom in each one of us. And the great ideological struggle that we find ourselves engaged in today is not a new struggle. It is the same old battle." We met it under the name of Hitlerism. We met it under the name of Kaiserism. We have met it back through the ages in the name of every conqueror that has ever set upon a course of establishing his rule over mankind. It is simply the idea, the basis of this country and of our religion, the idea of the dignity of man, the idea that deep within the heart of each one of us is something so godlike and precious that no individual or group has the right to impose his or its will upon the people so well as they can decide for themselves. Kaiserism, Marxism, communism, socialism, progressivism, collectivism. Yeah, we're fighting those today. And the other thing that we're fighting is globalism. And don't let anybody tell you differently. We're fighting globalism. That is encompassing all these others. They want to rule the world. In Reagan's first inaugural address, he said this, imploring his fellow Americans with a tear in his eye and a lump in his throat. I remember this, watching this. Together, with God's help, we can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And after all, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans, unquote. Yes, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans. To Reagan, that meant everything. It should mean everything to us, we the people. Yes, we the people. And we're sitting here, hopefully your mind is racing about what's going on out there. And while it's racing about what I just told you about American exceptionalism, which is trying to be taken away from us, listen to this.
He crowned
Ray Charles, America the Beautiful. Whew, chills up and down your spine. I hope so. I'll probably give you chills. Who knows? Another rule for American patriots. We have another obligation to stop the mortal enemies of freedom from dominating the debate. They've dominated the debate too long. George Washington, in a letter to Lafayette in 1788, said this, quote, "Though when a people shall have become incapable of governing themselves and fit for a master, it is little consequence from what quarter he comes," unquote. Thomas Jefferson, in a letter to Charles Yancey in 1826, quote, "If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be," unquote. Patrick Henry said, quote, "Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop our mortal enemies of freedom from dominating the debate. We need to stop being sucked into their premises. We need to self-educate ourselves. That should be another rule. In the histories and in the things that our founding fathers studied that led to this great nation with this constitutional republic. It's pretty much that simple. So it's going to be a hard road to go. The next rule for American patriots, belief in the individual. Individual rights, individual spirit. I'm going to have to do Ayn Rand's man's rights. She was a big proponent of the individual. And the many have wrote like she did, there really is no society. It's made up of individuals and families. All right, belief in the individual. At the hub of all this is America's beliefs was a respect for the individual, whether the person suffering in the gulag, the person growing in the womb, the person paying taxes, the person caught on the treadmill of welfare state dependency, the mom or dad or child who formed the family, the farmer who produces food, the inventor who innovates, or the entrepreneur who starts a business and generates prosperity. American patriots should be confident in the individual's ability to make a difference, pick up himself or herself, to make and mirror America's exceptionalism, to change the world. We need to recognize that power in our life, our own family, our own career, and our own ambition, and that power in all others who want to achieve more than self. The promise and freedom of individual action propelled America to dizzying achievements. History has shown us those achievements. We witness them every day. We need to understand the divine system that the founding fathers gave us that allowed the human spirit to blossom under freedom's light. See? Freedom's light. That's the bright light that should squint our eyes. That's the bright light that should make our eyes adjust from coming out of the darkness or the dimness that has been placed upon America and the world right now. The American patriots must continue to put their faith in God, the blessing He rains down on America, and the support He provides for us. Continue to believe in America. Never give up on America. A patriotic spirit is one of fortitude and strength. When you're patriotic, you are dedicated and strong. You exude a special fortitude in showing your dedication to achieve goals in the best interests of the country. Whether you display the American flag, thank a military member for their service, or volunteer with a military organization, you are using that strength and fortitude to do what's right for the benefit of our country. Every patriotic deed you do and every display you take the time to deliver reinforces the strength of our country, one citizen at a time. You might not realize it, but patriotic expressions give others strength. When you do a good deed for someone else, it elevates them and encourages them to pass that feeling on. When you vote for a strong government representative, you fortify our republic. When you salute a veteran, you let them know that you appreciate everything they've done and you inspire others to carry that mantle. These acts of patriotism galvanize us. Every act of patriotism is important. Patriotism comes in all forms. Embracing patriotism will show much needed support for our country and help to create a stronger, more unified nation. Even something as simple as wearing one nation's colors can have a compounding effect on the patriotic acts you deliver in your everyday life. Never underestimate the importance of representation of America. Together with patriotic acts, there is no more powerful combination on earth than a proud American citizen who's open about their patriotism. We the people are the strength of America. We the people are the workers of America. We the people are the inventors in America. We the people are the religious faithful in America. We the people do the living and dying in America. We the people will continue to believe in, sustain, and support the principles and values of the United States Constitution. We the people are strong together, and no one can ever break us up. We the people believe everyone should be treated fairly and equally. We the people are one country forever. We the people are the patriotic Americans who will protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that, folks, is the Medlock Post radio show for today, March 1st, 2023. May God bless you, and may God bless America.